When you're watching TV, listening to music, or scanning social media, do you stay away from temptations with your eyes as you ought to? When someone gives you a job to do you complete it without supervision when they know they're not following you and following up on you on your responsibilities? When you're given a job to do you do it to excellence? Do you pay your bills on time? Do you owe anyone money and you fulfill that obligation? Is this too rough? Is this too personal? If you saw a wallet lying on the floor, what would you do? Are you the same no matter who you're with? Are you the same every day? Are you quick to recognize others for their efforts and contribution to your success? We can go on, that's a lot. These are questions that you ask yourself when you start living a life more with the frame of mind, am I pleasing to God in the area of integrity? I remember years ago, I was a cashier at a store, and late one night, some people came in. They eventually came up to the register, and the guy paid for what he got, but he gave me about $30 more than what it cost. And when I realized it, I told him that he gave me too much money and I gave him back the money. And so after the transaction was done, he was getting ready to leave, and then he turned back to me and said, "Don't you go to so-and-so church? I thought I recognized you." He was testing me. Now, the real test was my attitude after I found out he tested me. Because I wanted to get in the flesh then. But you never know who's evaluating your life. You never know. When you least expect, someone is watching you. I'm sure we all have stories in which we could tell along these lines. Psalms 15, verse 1. Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle? Who may dwell in your holy hill? He who walks uprightly, many translations says, who walks in integrity and works righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart. He who does not backbite with his tongue, we're still talking about integrity now, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up a reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised, but he honors those who fear the Lord. Here's what I want you to see. He who swears to his own hurt and does not change. How many times, if you give a promise to someone and you find that later you're inconvenienced, you try to get out of it? Keeping your word is a part of truthfulness. Why do people lie? Now, lying is, in some instances, one of the least concerning things in a Christian's life these days. People lie because, number one, they fear rejection. They fear not being liked. Number two, they fear of losing something or losing someone. Next, they want to avoid conflict. Next, out of selfishness. To get something out of someone or to prevent from losing what they already have. Out of pride. Don't want to be seen in a negative light. Don't want to be seen as having a fault or a flaw. One of the most important things, and probably one of the most difficult things that as a believer we are confronted with, is not to tell a lie. Several years ago, probably at the turn of the century, well, early 1900s, there was a terrible train wreck, and this is a true story. There was a terrible train wreck, and several people died in that wreck. They had this massive investigation. They eventually had a trial. And within that trial, they asked the key person, had you done what you were supposed to do? Because what had happened, someone had called this man and told him that he needed to raise a lamp to stop that train from coming, because at the bottom of the ravine of the mountain, the track had gone out. So in the investigation on trial, this man was on trial. They began to ask him several questions, and the main question was, did you raise that lamp so that engineer could see to stop? And the man said, yes, I raised the lamp. And he asked this man 3 more times, and each time the man in his response was not as stern with his answer. And the last time he asked the man, he said, I raised it. But he wasn't as emphatic as he was before. When the trial was over, a couple of days later, this man's best friend went to visit him and asked him, when you were given the answer, it seemed like you weren't as sure. And the man said, well, when I was told to do what I was going to do, I thought I had more time to do it. And when I noticed the train was coming, I went and got the lamp, but I forgot to light it. And I raised it, but who can see a lamp? Now, like I said, this was at the turn of the 19th century, the 900s. The man lied by not telling all the truth. Now, this is where I have to watch it, is not to omit important facts. How many times have I dealt with people who told me information and left out the most important thing? Are you kidding me? That is just as much as a lie as just straight up telling a lie.
That's right. Sure is.
And these things are things that we have to instill in the children at an early age. Tell the whole truth. Tell the truth, nothing but the truth, the whole truth. Growing up, that's when I got in the most trouble out of the things I used to do all the time, is not telling the truth. I can tell y'all are really excited about this message, but
I like that you're going slow so I can take notes. I appreciate it.
integrity goes beyond even telling the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. But it has to do with your whole character. One of the words is solid, being complete. It's being a whole person, not one of duplicity. not two-faced. Through my years, the people that I admired the most in Christianity and as role models for me were people, when I got around them, I honestly couldn't explain it back then. But when I got around them, there was a weight. There was a weight about them. There was a solidness about them. I'm trying to put it in words, I'm not sure. But one of the definitions of the glory is weight. When the glory comes on someone, there's a heaviness. That's another word for glory, heavy. And so when a person becomes more Christ-like, there's a weight or a heaviness or an authority. That's the better word. An authority that comes on them. And a person who is not like that, there's a lightness about them. And when I say lightness, I mean you don't sense any seriousness in them. I pray y'all get this. On your sheet, spiritual truth is spiritual reality or foundational reality. The quality of staying with facts or reality, avoiding distortion or misrepresentation or falsehood. The main reason that Moses was not allowed to go into the promised land is not the fact that he struck the rock. It was the fact that God told him to speak to the rock, and Moses took upon himself to hit it, and he misrepresented God. God didn't tell him to hit it. So whenever you don't tell the truth, you're misrepresenting a nature of God in some facet. Like I said, what we're talking about, integrity, is the very foundation of your Christianity. It's the belt of truth. The belt of truth in the armor is what holds together all the other pieces of the armor. That's how important it is. And as a skeleton is to your physical frame, the 206 bones in your body is the foundation of your whole physical existence. There was a nurse who was just hired at this prestigious hospital. And on her first day when she came to work, her responsibility in the operating room was to make sure all the instruments were accounted for after the surgery. Because you don't want a sponge in somebody.
That's right.
And it's a lot of mistakes in hospitals. So they had the surgery, and this renowned surgeon was almost finished with the surgery. He did what all he was supposed to do. And he said that it's time to close now. And so the lady started looking around, and she noticed that they started out with 12 sponges. She only counted 11. So she was looking everywhere, and the surgeon said, well, it's really time to go ahead and end this. And she said, but we can't find the last sponge. And he said, well, maybe we need to go ahead and close this. The woman said, well, we can't close it, sir. Now notice, this is the first day. We can't close this. We have to find that sponge. And the man said, well, it's time to go. We're going to go ahead and close. Suture, please. And the woman goes to the man's face and says, you cannot close now because we don't have all the equipment. And she is staring right in his face, and he's staring at hers. And everybody in there is looking, watching what's going to happen. The surgeon moves his foot, and guess what was on his foot? The sponge. He was testing her. He said, well, now I know you'll be hired here and anywhere else. Testing. You're going to get tested every almost day. Either by the enemy or by other believers or sinners. Every day. I'm hoping this message brings to the forefront of you being honest, being a person of integrity, watching your words, watching your responsibility, being the best worker, just like the famous painter spent all his time on the top of the statue where no one could see because the statue was so way up in the air. Someone asked him, why did you spend so much time doing the man's head and no one's going to be able to see it? He said, God will. I encourage you to take being honest and teaching honest things seriously. The end. Any questions? Any comments?
A few. There's one that comes to mind earlier when you were trying to explain what it's like to be around somebody that has that feel to them, that heaviness. And I almost feel like for me, that's when the Holy Spirit in me recognizes the Holy Spirit in them. I feel that, and that's that heaviness
Yeah.
So much so, every single day you think, like, is it worth it, what I'm doing? Because it is so much harder to be honest and live with integrity.
Yep.
So, it's a great reminder, God sees you, other people see you, you never know, especially your kids. Your kids are sponges.
Yeah.
If they see you doing the right thing, all of a sudden you turn around, they're teenagers, and you see them doing something that you did like 10 years ago. And you're just like, where did you learn that? Where did you learn how to be such a kind person? They learn it from you. Yes, you. But I think so much so, it's one of the many traits that is so hard to come by now in the world. In the world before, you know, when so much of our culture was God-based, integrity was something we saw all the time. Now it's not.
Okay, the end. Have a good evening.